Following the days of Noah on Yahuah's correct calendar, an in-depth study by Dana Haven. Please sit back and enjoy. Matthew 24:37 says, "But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be." How are we going to know when Yahushua actually comes for us if we don't know how the days of Noah were followed and when was actually meant when we are told which day of the month and things happened on? I don't believe we truly can until we find out what was the calendar that Noah was following and then do our best to match it to our current calendars. This is exactly what this study is going to attempt to do by showing the current calendar to go by and then piecing together two calendars, the Hebrew and our Gregorian calendar, and putting in important historical significant dates for the days of Noah in our current time. Mind you, these are only possibilities to look for, and only Father knows the exact and perfect timing of when the coming of the Son of Man will be. It's evident to me that we're doing things wrong. Knowing this, let's get this right. We can get it right. For it is written that the wise should know. It's apparent to me that many are confused when Matthew 24 says, "But of that day and hour knoweth no man." No, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. No, I think ones are confused by that passage, because that is the passage of his final coming, when he comes at Armageddon. Notice in the scriptures before that, Matthew 24:31 says that he shall send his angels with great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. So that's when the elect are already in heaven, for my interpretation. I believe that the wise do know, but it's the unwise that don't know the time of his coming, because the elect are taken first, and then the unwise stay. Matthew 25:13 says, "Watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour in which the Son of Man is coming." And that's a message, again, to the unwise virgin, and not to the wise virgin that can know to look for the proper timings. And so that's what I'm going to do. Look for that proper timing. What I found out is that Yahuah's calendar is a 364-day calendar. This is based upon a solar calendar and not at all a lunar calendar. The two just don't jive, solar and lunar. And so both in Enoch and in Jubilees, we see the mention of this 364 days. First of all, in Enoch 74, we see mention that it says, "Thus I saw their position, how the moon rose and the sun set in those days, and if 5 years are added together, the sun has an overplus of 30 days, and all the days which accrue to it for one of those 5 years, when they are full amount to 364 days. The overplus of the sun and the stars amounts to 6 days in 5 years. 6 days every year come to 30 days, and the moon falls behind the sun and the stars to the number of 30 days, and the sun and the stars bring in all the years exactly, so that they do not advance or delay their position by a single day until eternity, but complete the year with a perfect justice in 364 days. So that's out of the book of Enoch. That's like from chapter 74, um, verses 11 through, what is it here? Something like 12 or 13. The book of Jubilees similarly says same thing in chapter 6, verses 30 through 38. I'll read. And all the days of the commandment will be 2 and 52 weeks a day. So if you 52 times 7 is 364 days. Make the entire year complete. Thus it's engraven and ordained on the heavenly tablets. And there is no neglecting this commandment for a single year or from year to year. I command thou the children of Israel that they observe the years according to this reckoning, 364 days. These will constitute a complete year, and they will not disturb its time from its days and from its feasts, for everything will fall out in them according to their testimony, and they will not leave out any day nor disturb any feast. But if they do neglect and do not observe them according to his commandment, then they will disturb all the seasons, and the years will be dislodged from this order. They will disturb the seasons and the years, and they will neglect their ordinances. And all the children of Israel will forget and will not find the half of years, and will forget the new moons and seasons and Sabbaths. And again, new moons in this is the first day of the months, and the Sabbaths, and they would go wrong as to all the order of the years. For I know, and from henceforth will I declare it unto thee, it is not of my own devising, for the book lies written before me, and on the heavenly tablets the divisions of the days is ordained, lest they forget the feasts and walk according to the feast of the Gentiles, after their error and after their ignorance. For these there will be those who will assuredly make observances of the moon, how it disturbs the seasons, and comes in from year to year 10 days too soon. For this reason, the years will come upon them when they will disturb the order, and will make an abominable day the day of testimony, and an unclean day a feast day, and they will confound all the days of the holy with the unclean, and the unclean day with the holy, for they will go wrong as to the months and Sabbaths and feasts and jubilees. For this reason I command and testify to thee, that thou mayest testify to them, for after thy death thy children will disturb them, so they will not make the year 364 days only. For this reason they will go wrong as to the new moons. Again, I'm going to show later on in this study that new moons actually it's the first day of the months in seasons and Sabbaths and festivals. They will eat all kinds of blood with all kinds of flesh. So we see it in both the books of Jubilee and Enoch, the era that they are not following 364 days like they should have. And that's why I say the Enoch and Jubilee calendar is what they should be following. And so how is this calendar comprised? Basically, in Enoch 72, 8 through 31, we see mention of 4 periods of 91 days. And these are assembled by 3-month periods of 30, 30, and 31 days. Again, the 4 divisions of 91 days, thus 364-day total. When asked by Sister Sherry if Lucifer had changed the calendar from solar to lunar, Lucifer said, yeah, that was one of the things that they were mad about. So folks, we really need to get back on track. We need to go back to God's positioning system. The system, the solar system, and following the 364 days. And we've got to understand that why there is a confusion of following the new moons is because of Lucifer's interference and his one's interference. What happens is we see the word new moons within writings, these writings. We see, and on the new moon of the 4th month, and on the new moon of the 2nd month, and things like that. So we're taking that as meaning new moons as in a moon up in the sky, but what really meant, if you look at Strong's Concordance in the word for new moon, which is H2320, Hebrew word, new moon actually can mean new month, first day of the month. And so simply means instead the first day of the month when we see these writings as such. So where do we start? Where do we start to get back on track? The only way that we can get back on track is finding out an exact date of the first day of a new month, new moon. Now, I feel that Father very well could have been telling us of this date back in September of 2015, specifically on a Monday night show, September 14th. Sister Sherry reported that the Father had told her that the significant dates we need to pay attention to are the 15th to the 25th. As I feel at that time, he was showing us, because the conversation was about the new moon being delayed, that ones do fall to do the calendars. And I think Father was showing us that instead the new moon had to do with the first day of the first month, which would have been Rosh Hashanah and 1 Tishri of that year, and the 10th day would have been the Day of Atonement. So, I feel that the 15th of September is the first date that we have got to use to get back on track. So if we take that date of September 15, 2015, knowing that there's 364 days in a year, go forward 364 days, it will bring us through September 12th, 2016, and a new start date of an Enoch Jubilee calendar of September 13th, 2016. One more thing I want to discuss before we actually go on to creating a calendar for ourselves. What is the first month? What is considered the first month? Is it the 7th month that we are told about in Leviticus 23 and Numbers 29? Day blowing with trumpets unto you? Or is it the month of Abib and when Passover is held? Is that the first month that is discussed in Deuteronomy 16:1? Well, Exodus 12 specifically told Moses that this month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. that was what was described to Moses. And that was what was considered the month of Abib, which is also called Nisan, if I pronounce that correctly. And I think that that is indeed the first month. And this is why. First of all, the 5 books of Moses, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, were all written by Moses. We also see that the book in which I've referred to this new calendar in the book of Jubilees is also dictated to Moses on Mount Sinai. We also see another book that if I haven't referenced already, I'm going to be referencing, because it describes the days of Noah, the book of Jasher. And Jasher was actually the son of Caleb. And we see that he's actually referred to also as Jasher. In Chronicles 2:18, it says that in Caleb the son of Hezron to get children, and one of these Jasher. So, knowing that at the time of the Exodus, when all this information was given to Moses, Caleb also heard about it. And so Jasher would have also known about all this when he wrote the book of Jasher. So it is therefore my opinion that when we see the first month, the second month, in these other books, Genesis, in Jubilees and Jasher, we are supposed to consider it as such. When it says the second month, we don't convert it to the 8th month. It is the second month. And that is my opinion. I'll stick with it. So let's go forward together now and look at Enoch Jubilee's calendar. And starting with the first 4 months, let's see if we notice any particulars to take note of. Looking at it, start with the start date of September 13th, 2016, the 7th month. I don't see any important dates to take note of. Likewise, in the 11th and 12th months, I also don't see any significant dates to take note of. But as we turn to the 1st and 2nd months, this is where we really got to take important note here. I do see a lot of dates that I wanted to just point out, and again, as possibilities. Under this calendar, the first month would begin on March 14th. We then see going down to the 14th day of what's considered the first month here on this calendar would be March 27th of this year, would be considered such the real date of Passover and that the Exodus began. On the 15th is when the high Sabbath of unleavened bread is, and on the 17th of the month is when Yahuah would have risen from the dead. Those dates accordingly would be the 28th for unleavened bread and the 30th. Yahuah rise 30th. We then see another high Sabbath, the end of Feast of Unleavened Bread, on April 3rd. April 4th, we see the Feast of Weeks and First Fruits begins. And this is what I believe it begins. I'm not for certain on this. I just feel that it begins on the day after which the last day of unleavened bread is. I don't think the two celebrations intertwine. And that was based upon a separate study I did. I might be wrong. I've also contemplated whether it would actually begin on the 17th day of the month when Yahuah rose. But again, I don't know for sure either way, so I'm just putting it there for right now, whether it's right or wrong. We then go further down in the month, and on April 9th, we see Palm Sunday observed. We then see on April 10th, the first day of Passover observed. So that would be on the Hebrew calendar, first day of Passover observed. Then we see on the second month, April 13th, which would be the day in which Jubilees 5:23 mentions Noah and his family entering the ark. On April 14th, we see Good Friday observed. And on April 16th, we see Easter observed. Going further down here, we see on April 22nd, this is when it's mentioned in Genesis 7:4 about in 7 days I will cause it to rain. This is also in Jasher 6:10 through 11 that it's to 11. It's mentioned about the earth shaking and the sun darkening, and I feel that that could be the match with the days of Noah. It sounds like that's when the sixth seal could happen. We then also, going down further, see the actual flood beginning on April 29th, which is also when they're finally closed in. The door is shut. I also put down here on May 7th, when day 40 from rising from the grave was. The original rising of the grave if he rose on the 17th day of that first month. So those were the highlights that I wanted to pass on to you on the first and the second months. So before I lose my train of thought, I wanted to point out a message that Father told Sister Sherry at the beginning of the year. He told her that they will plan an Easter arrival, as you have said. I lead you in all your ways, child. Look for me. I will be unannounced, but by you, child. All others don't hear from me. You will see the sign I have told you about. Sister Sherry said, what days should I look for your sign, Father? And Father said, on the days you always do, Sabbaths and Mondays. Sherry said, which Sabbath, the seventh day or the first day? Father said, my Sabbath, the seventh day. So I was right about those, Sister Sherry said. And Father said, yes, I lead you, child. You will prepare the people for their arrival, and then I will take you home. Sister Sherry asked, so I leave before they arrive? Father said, yes, I will bring you home with the others who are with you. The rest will stay for a bit, and then I will bring them home too, but only a fraction of them. That's what Father said. I think it's very important. And now if we look back at the calendar and look at looking at the dates with Father's word in mind, Sister Sherry and the others that are with her should be leaving prior to Easter, possibly on a show day. Her shows are now on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, and her sign from Father being on either a Sabbath day or a Monday. Looking again at the Enoch Jubilee calendar, with Easter being on April 16th, fourth day of the second month, I could see Sister Sherry receiving her sign on April 10th, a Monday, in the official Hebrew calendar day observance of 14 Nisan and Passover in the evening, and then our leaving possibly being on April 13th, the first day of the second month of the Enoch Jubilee calendar, when Jubilees 5:23 says, and he entered in the 6th year thereof, 1308 a.m., in the second month on the new moon, first day of the second month, that would mean, which would also be the Hebrew calendar observance of the 17th day of Nisan, of when Yahuah rose from the grave. Pretty exciting, if you ask me, if it happens like that. So wrapping up this study in the remaining months following the days of Noah and putting it on our calendars, here we see on June 7th of the third month, there is day 40 of the rain coming. Don't really see any thing in the 4th, 5th, 6th months. In the 7th, we do see finally on the 12th of September, Rosh Hashanah, the celebration of Rosh Hashanah. We also see then on the, I do believe it would be the 21st day of September, the Day of Atonement. And on the 23rd, we see that is supposedly when that Virgo sign is going to be in the sky. And then finally, we see on the 25th day of September, day 150 from the starting date of the flood. And that wraps up the study. I hope you've enjoyed it. Again, these are just possibilities and dates that I'm going to be particularly looking at and see what transpires. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's been a pleasure doing it.